Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel Code for Tech Solutions. Today in this video we are going to cover a new topic like how to create a full stack development step by step using React.js, Node.js and MariaDB as a database. On the front end side we are going to use React.js, on the back end side we are going to use Node.js and MariaDB as a database. These are some prerequisites which we are going to use, like as an editor we are going to use VS Code. For the front end side we are going to use the React technology, and React table and axios library we are going to use with these versions. On the backend side we are going to use Node, and for the backend database we are going to use MariaDB, and these are some other tools like HDSQL user interface which we are going to use to create database and table on the MariaDB side, and the postman tool we are going to use to test our APIs which we have written on the backend side. So this is about all the prerequisites which we are going to use. So in order to build our full stack application, we are going to follow some points in sequence. Like first, we are going to see the architecture diagram. Next, we are going to see a user interface demo in which I will showcase you a small demo so that you can visualize how our application will look like once we build and run into the browser. Next thing, like we are going to create our database and table in MariaDB database. Next, we are going to create our backend application using Node.js, and in that first we will create our Node.js backend application. Next, we will configure the MariaDB database in that. Next, we are going to implement the CRUD operations, and finally, we will test our CRUD operations using Postman. So this is about the backend application and the points which we are going to cover in that. Next thing, like on the front end side, we will create our front end application using React.js. First, it's a new application we can create. Next we are going to create a table using React table and populate it with columns and data, and we are also going to write integration logic so that we can connect with our backend APIs and fetch data or store data uh, to the database using these integration logic functionalities. And next, we are going to implement some core functionalities or main functionalities like search filter, sorting, and pagination using hooks and functions available in React table library. And finally, we will test our application functionality end to end through UI browser. So this is about all the points which we are going to cover in this video. So first, we can see the architecture diagram. So in this video we are going to create a complete user system architecture, and this is the user web application which we are going to create using Node.js, and this is the libraries like React table library we are going to use, and using the hooks and functions available in it we are going to implement main functionalities like search filters, searching, sorting and pagination. And using axios library we are going to give a call to our backend APIs and fetch data and store data into the database. So this is about the front end application which we are going to create using React.js. On the backend side we are going to create our user service backend application using Node, and in that we are going to implement all the CRUD operations. Our backend service will connect with our database, and on the database side we are going to use MariaDB as a database, and we are going to use HDSQL user interface to create database and table for user on the backend side. So this is about the overall architecture we are going to implement uh, or create using in this video from scratch or start to end. So before we jump into the coding, I will request you to please visit my channel Code for Tech Solutions, and herein I have implemented various number of full stack applications using combination of React and Spring Boot as well as React and Node.js, and I have covered various databases like Node.js, like MariaDB, MongoDB, and PostgreSQL, MySQL, and H2 database. So you can visit to this channel and watch any full stack application you want or you like. So let us jump into, before we jump into the coding, let me showcase you our how our interface will look like once we build our full stack application and run it into the browser. So this is the interface it will look like, and this is the header, and this is the add panel and edit panel which we are going to use to create user and edit users. So first we can add one user. So let's say it's an Vijay, it's an username, and role, let's say it's an admin, and technology we can say it's an in HR department we can say, and we can add it. Now we can see the record is added successfully as the last record is in a table. So similar way, like if you want to edit any record, like let's say this is the second record which we want to edit. Instead of Karan we can say it's a Kumar, and instead of guest we can say it's an user role, it's in your user role, and manager we can keep as is, and we can click on add button. Now we can see the record is successfully updated. So this is about the updation part. If you want to delete any record, like we can simply click on delete button, it will show us the confirmation box. We need to click on OK button and it will delete the record. Now we can see the record is deleted from the database. So this is about all the CRUD operations we are going to implement. Next thing, like apart from that, we are going to implement the search filter functionality, in which you can type any name or any text. Accordingly the table data will get filtered out, and this search filter is applicable to all the columns and data in table. So let's say if you want to go for 10th record of user ID, for technology if you want to sort on basis of HR or role as an admin, fine. So it is filtering as expected. Next we are also going to implement the sorting logic. You can see the sorting is applicable to all the columns, like for name as well, and it will sort in ascending and descending order as we like. Fine. So this is about sorting part, which we are also going to implement, and finally we are going to implement the pagination. And in pagination, this is like first, previous buttons, next button, and last button is there, and this is the page index of page count. And if right now we are on the first page and we do not have any previous page to show, that's why these buttons like first and previous are disabled. Once we click on next button, it will take us to the next page, and once we click on next button, like once we reach on the last page, the next and last button will get disabled because we do not have any further page to show. Likewise, if we click on previous button, it will take us to the previous page, and if we click on last button, it will take us to the last page. If we click on first button, it will take us to the first page. And by default the page size, like records on page are 10 by default, but we have made it to the 5 as an page size, so that we can show our pagination with lesser record to you. So this is about all the things, all the functionalities which we are going to implement in this video. So I will request you to please watch this from start to end, so that you will not miss anything in between. So let us start with our implementation of, first we will create our Node.js application, backend application. So before we create a backend application, first we need to create a database part. So let us create our database for user. So once if you have not installed MariaDB database, so I have created one separate video for that, like how to install a MariaDB database. You can go through that and install it. Once you install the MariaDB database, this SQL user interface will get installed with the installation of MariaDB. So you need to open this to create your database and tables. Now here, this is the session. Now here you need to enter the username and password which you have set at the time of MariaDB installation. Once you enter this, now the port, by default the port is 3306, but I have set it to the 3308 in my case. So you need to click on open, so that it will open the user interface for us. Now here, this is the session. To create a database, we can create on the we can choose the option create new database, and here we can enter our database name. Let's say in our case it's an user underscore master. and this is the new database. Now we can create a table inside that, and here is our table name is user, and here we can enter our first column, which is a user ID. We need to make it as a primary key, so here we can use this create new index and make it as a primary key. We can choose data type as an begin, and here we need to, for the instead of default, we need to make it as an auto increment and click on OK. So this is about user ID column. Next we need to add our next user name column, and here it should be the varchar type, and you can mention the length, let's say 50. Next we can add our role column, which is again a varchar, and finally we can add our technology column, which is again a varchar, and we can save it. So with this we have created our new database with name user underscore master. Inside that we have created our user table, and with columns like these are the different columns with these data types. So this is the user. Right now our user database is empty user table. We can cross check. Now we do not have any record. These are the column names. So now the table is empty. So with this we have created our database and table inside MariaDB side. So let us create our backend application using Node.js. Let me first open the VS Code instance. Let me close the existing one. Fine, here. Here we can create one new folder with name, let's say it's an user service. We can see the folder is empty now. We need to initialize it using npm init -y. We can see the product.js package.json is created. Now we need to install what all dependencies we are going to use using npm install or npm I, and the dependencies like we are going to use Express framework. Next we are going to use Node.js. Next we are going to use course, and next we are going to use MariaDB, and we are going to use body parser as well. So these many dependency or libraries we require, so we can install it in one go. This is the Express framework, so let it install so that I will tell you. Fine. So this is the body parser. We need to use it in order to deal with our JSON related operations. Course like we are going to call our APIs using the browser, and our request should not get blocked due to the course origin. So for that we are going to use this course. Now Express framework, we are going to, it's a backend framework which we are going to use to create our backend application. And this is the MariaDB module we require to connect with the MariaDB database and Node.js. Using this we do not need to rebuild our code on code changes. So this is about all the dependencies we have added. Now let us do one thing, like let us create our backend server file with name server.js. Fine. Inside this, like what all things we are going to use, like first we are going to import the packages or modules which are we are going to use. Next thing, like we are going to connect to MariaDB database. Next we are going to so before we can connect to the MariaDB database, we are first going to create our server Node.js or using Node.js, and here we need to connect to the MariaDB database, and finally we are going to implement CRUD operations. So these are the points which we are going to cover. Like first we will add the import modules or packages. Next we are going to create a server. Next we are going to connect to the MariaDB, and finally we will add our CRUD operation related logic. So let us add it here. Like first we are going to use Express framework. Next we are going to use our, this is our app, and we are going to use this Express framework. And next we are going to use course. Next we are going to use MariaDB. Next we are going to use body parser. Fine. And here we can, our app is going to use body parser dot JSON. Next course we are going to use, here we can use app.use, and here body parser dot we can use sorry, here it should be body parser. Fine, we can save it. Now here we can use URL encoded extended as an false, we can use. Fine. Next we can write our application should listen to we need to add one port as well, constant for port. Or we can mention some specific port, like let's say 3000, and here our application should listen to port. And here we can log the message. Our server is running on port, and here we can mention the actual port, which is our port number. Fine, we can save it. Now this is about our server.js. Now one more thing we need to add, like this is our package.json, and here instead of index.js, which is a default, we need to mention our file, which is server.js. Next we need to add the start script, and for start script we can use node-mun server.js. So it should use server.js for start script. Now let us start our application using command. Let me clear this first. Let us start our application using command npm start. Yes, we can see our server is running on port 3000, which is as expected. Fine. So we have created our Node.js backend application, and these are the imports or constants which we are going to use, and in our application we are going to use these constants. And finally our application is listening to this port, and it is successfully logging this message. That's it about we have creating a Node.js backend server. Next thing, like we can create our backend connection logic. So we can write it here as well, or we can create one new folder altogether for the database connection logic, and here we can create one file with name db.js. And inside this db.js, let's say we first require constant for MariaDB, and here we can add MariaDB. So next thing we can define one constant for pool, and we can add MariaDB dot create pool, and inside which we need to mention like what host we are going to use. It's an local host. Next thing, like the user, what is the user, like in our case it's a root. You can create a custom user, and right now I'm using the root user, but the best practice, you should create the new user account and use it. Here is our root 123. Next thing, like we are going to use a database. What database we are going to connect to? Like in our case it's a user underscore master, which we have just created. And finally we are going to use the port number, which is 3308. In our case by default it's a 3306, but on the 3306 MySQL database is running for me. That port is using by MySQL, hence I have changed it to 3308. So this is about the database connection. So if you want to cross check anything like database name or kind, you can go to it here. User underscore master is the database, and if you want to check, fine. So database and all this root username, and you can cross check and enter appropriate entries so that it will connect to the database. Next thing, we need to export it using command exports, and here we can use object dot freeze. So this is basically so that this object should not get modified in between, or anyhow it should not get changed. Fine. So with this we are done with our database connection logic. Now we need to use it in our server file. Let's say here we need to first import our file, which is db, and here this is the db.js. Now we can use like app.use. Fine. So this much is enough to connect to the database. Now let us implement our CRUD API operations. So to do that, so this is the create server, we can place it at here. Fine. Now let us implement our CRUD operations. So for that we can use like app dot. First of all, we can implement the get method, and here is our endpoint, which is like, let's say, users, and here we can use async, and these are the callbacks, request and response. And here in first of all we can mention try catch block. So this is the try, and this is the catch. And in case of error, we are going to simply throw it. We can define some SQL, like let's say select star from user is our table. That's it, no parameters. And finally it should return the result using await, and here we are going to use db.pull, and on this we are going to call query, and we need to pass this SQL which we have prepared. Finally we are going to use response.send, and here is our result which we are going to send. That's it. This is about the get method. Now let us add the post method similar way. And for post we need to mention, let us create one object, like let's say new user, and we can take the input user from the body, and here we need to prepare a query like insert into user, and here we can mention the user, and here let's say we have name and role and technology. These are the columns which we are going to use, and for values we are going to use these many placeholders, like first is for name, next is for role, and next is for technology. We can complete this. Fine. Now next thing, like we are going to call this very next we are going to add fine. Now this is the SQL. After this we need to pass the input parameters, like let's say it's a new user dot name, next thing like we can say new user dot role, and here we can add new user dot technology. Fine. So these are the input params which we are going to set as an place for at the place of placeholders, and finally we are going to return our response dot JSON, and inside that we are going to pass this result. That's it. Now here we need to add one more thing, like we need to add begin dot prototype dot to JSON, and here is our function, like it will return this dot to string. Basically this is for, like, it should not give us a begin to serialization issue, so that we are converting the begin to the toString, so just to avoid that issue. Fine. So we are done with our post method. Next we are going to create our patch method, and for patch method it's for updation patch method, so we can use it. And here for patch method we need to add user ID as well, apart along with our user object, updated object. So here what we can do, next thing, here we need to again like mention one ID part, and here we can extract ID from request dot params dot user ID. So let us add, this is about the patch operation. Now let us add for delete part. So here for patch we need to add one more thing, like we need to change the query, like update user, and here is our set name is equal to placeholder, role is equal to placeholder, and technology is equal to placeholder. Fine. And we can say where user id is equal to again a placeholder. Now what we have done, like this is the query we have prepared for updation, and we are passing this query, and these are the input parameters like name, role, and technology. Now we need to pass one more parameter like user id, which we have extracted it here. So we can simply pass it here after comma. Fine. So with this we are done with our update method. Now let us add for delete method as well. So this is our patch method. We can copy it and it's a delete. For delete method we do not require to pass this body, only id is enough for deletion. And here we need to change the query delete user, delete, we can say delete from user, and here we can keep the where clause as is, and this is the user id, and we do not need to pass the request body, only id is enough, and we can save it. Fine. With this we are done with our all the CRUD operation implementation part. Now let us test all these CRUD operations using postman. Let me open the postman, and here we can use the get method, and here is our http, and the port name we need to confirm what port we are going to use. It's a 3000, same port we are going to use. Now here instead of location, this is the users, and for body we can select raw and json, row and json. It's raw and json, and we can click. Now you can see it is showing the empty row. Now see, this is the users endpoint we are going to use for all the apis, and same we are going to use it here. Now after execution it is showing empty, which is as expected, because if we go into the database side in users, we do not have any data as of now. So let us add one entry using post mapping, and the same url we are going to use. Based on the http methods, it is calling the different methods, and this is the json. And here let's check, we can take one record for addition. First we can add this one. Fine, and we can add it. Yes, we can see one record is inserted successfully. Now let us cross check into the database. Yes, we can see one record is added successfully. With this our post is working fine. Let us add one more entry. So let us say this is for Kumar. Yes, we can the record is added successfully. And here if we check the get API, now we have two records. Our get is working fine, post is working fine. Now we can try for our patch mapping. So let us cross check in database, it should show the two records. Fine. So for patch mapping we can select the patch method, and here the same URL we can use as is. And for patch mapping we need to take one object which we need to modify, like let's say instead of Kumar we can say it's an David, and it's a guest role, is in a guest role, and it's a manager as is, we can keep. And here this is the modified object we are passing to update, and apart from that we need to add input which user id against which this object will get modified to. So fine, now we can click. Now we can see it is updated successfully. Now if we need to cross check with get method. Now the second user id is updated successfully with David. If we cross check into the database, yes, we can see it is updated. Next thing, like we can try for delete method. It's an delete API, we can choose the delete, same body raw json, and this is the entry. For delete method, just passing the user ID is enough. No need to pass the request body. Fine, we can see the record is deleted successfully. If you cross check, now there is only one record because second record we have just deleted. We can verify into the database as well. So you can see there is only one record. So with this we are done with our Node.js backend application creation part, and we have implemented all the CRUD operations as expected into that, and we have tested all those using postman. So now next thing, like, we can focus on our front-end application creation part. So here let me create one more terminal. Inside this we can use npm create wait @latest, and we can name our application user hyphen web. With this command it will create the new React application for us, and we need to select the React option and JavaScript it here, and we can go to our user web folder. We can use npm install command so that it will add all the dependencies. Now you can see this folder is created with default files and folders. This is the project folder user hyphen web. We can see npm install is done. Now we can run our application using command npm run dev. You can see our application is running fine. Seems good. So what we have done, we have created our new React.js application using command. This is the command for creating a new application. This is the command npm create wait@latest, and this is our application name user hyphen web. And what we have done, we have installed the dependencies and we have run our application using command npm run dev, and we have tested whether it is rendering into the browser. Fine. So this is the default page and it is showing as expected. Now let us clear the content from this so that we can create our application user interface from scratch. So let me clear everything from this app.jsx first. Remove these unused variables, imports, save it, and we can clear everything from the app.css as well. Next thing, we can go to the index.jsx. We need to remove this. We can remove this icon as well, and as a title we can say like it's a full stack using React.js plus React.js Node.js and MariaDB. We can copy this. We can save it now. Fine. Now let us add our main container, and so UI design, we can use the layout design. Like, first we can create one main div and we can give class name as an main container, and here we can add first h3 header, and we can add header as such. Next we can add one more div, and this is for our add panel, and here inside this we can add one div This is for, we can say, add panel, which is div inside add panel, and we can add first as a label, and it is for name. This is the name label. Next we add on the line break, because we are going to add one input for name as well, and here we can use input text. You can say it's a name, and it's again name. Fine. Last name we can give add panel input. Fine. That's it. What we can do here, fine, we can say it is reflecting. Now what we can do, we can add some CSS for, let's say it's a main container. We can mention some width, like let's say 577 pixel. Next thing, height, we can mention it's a fit content. Next, margin left, we can add fine. Next thing, we can add h3 header, and we can mention some color, and for color we can set it fine, seems good, and we can set text align center. Next thing, we can add for add panel, border, we can add 1 pixel solid. Next, we can add background color, let's say, or we can take some light color. Seems good. Next thing, we can add for our add panel input, which is a text box. Now here we can add border 1 pixel solid, border radius we can add 5 pixel, and here we can add some margin left. Let's say 10 pixel. And for this, so there is one more thing, like add panel div, we need to add it here. It's an add panel div, and we can add border, and this is the add panel input. Fine. Now this margin left we do not require. width we can mention what 40 pixel, height we can mention 25 pixel. We can save it. So for this div we can add margin left as an 5 pixel, seems good. And for this div we can remove this border. Here we need to add height as well. Let's say 60 pixel, seems good. And width we can mention as is, like what we have mentioned it here. So we can mention the width 585 pixel, let us say, because we need to add the add button as well as for delete button. Seems good. Add button and cancel button as well we need to add. Fine. Next thing, like similar way we can add two more divs. This is for name. We can add one more for role, and this is our role. You can copy it. And this is for technology. And here we can copy the same and we can see. Fine. Now we can go to our add panel div, and here we can say display, and here we can say inline. We can take it as an inline block. Seems good. Now it is showing as expected. Now let us add one more thing. It here we can add, so inside this div which is for add panel, we can add one button, and button name is add, and here we can add class name like add btn. Similar way we can add one more button which is for cancel. Fine, seems good. Now let us check. Now we need to add some css for add and cancel button, like this is the add button. Now we can add border and border radius. Next thing we can mention font size. Let's say 11 pixel. Line height we can mention somewhere 15 pixel, seems good. Now we can add margin left as an 5 pixel, and we need to mention some width, and let's say 60 pixel somewhere. Seems good. Now similar way here we can add some background color as well. So let's say we can take green. Now we can modify it to some extent. Seems good. Similar way we can add for cancel button, and this is for cancel button. Seems good. So this is about add and edit panel. Now let us add our search filter input box. Here we can add input search, and here we can say it's an input search. Same we can use for id, and we are going to add some placeholder like it's an search user. Here we can use class name as an input search. Seems good. Now we can add some css part for this one as well. We can add width, so margin left, width we can use somewhere, let's say 70 pixel. Now let us check what width is appropriate for this one. To 20 to 10 we can take. Height we can mention as an 25 pixel. And margin top we can take, let's say 35 pixels somewhere, and we can say seems good. We can add border and border radius part. Seems good. Now we can add background color as well. Let us take seems good. Or we can take something, this seems fine, seems good. Now let us do one thing. We are done. Now let us add our table part. Now inside this div we are going to render this table, and for table we have two main components. Like first is the t head, and for t head again we are going to use tr, and we are going to render t head. So this is about fine. This is about t head. Similar way we need to add for t body, and for t body again we are going to use, for each row we are going to render the data using td. That's it. This is the common structure of any table we used to follow. Fine. And this is the general structure. Now what we are going to use, like we are going to use the React table library and render the headers and data part as well. So first of all we need to import the library. What all things we are required for React application: npm install, we need a React table, and we need axios to give a backend API call. So let us install it first. Now we can see axios is added and React table is added as well. Now let us do one thing here. We can, first of all we can use import axios from axios. Next thing, like we can import let's say star as a React from React. Next thing we are going to use import, like let's say use table hook we are going to use, and this is from React table. So we will keep adding the other hooks as we need on need basis. Fine. So right now we are going to use table hook. Now here we can define one constant, first constant for let's say columns. First of all, we can define one constant for, we need to hold some user data, so we can use users set here, which will hold the users data, and this is the function set users. And here we can use react use state. Inside this sets and blank for now. Next thing, like we can define one constant for columns, and here we can use here react dot use memo, and here we are going to use some this initialization array, and here to add the constant we are going our headers to render the header or column, we are going to follow some structure. Like first it's a header, and here we can use it's an user ID, and for accessor we can use again user ID. User ID, fine, and we can complete it. So this is the first header. First, for first column we are going to use this header. This is the user ID, this is the user ID, and this is the accessor. The difference is that this user ID is going to display on the UI, and using this accessor we are going to access this column part. So this is about first column. Similar way we are going to add 3 more columns, like this is for name, and we can, this is the name, this is the role, and this is the role again, like this is for technology. Fine, seems good. Now we are done with our column part. Similar way we can use one variable for data, and we can use react dot use memo, inside which we can use this, and we can set our user set here. This is the users, and this is the dependency array. Fine. Next thing, like we can use our one table, and here we are going to use the use table hook, inside which we are going to render the columns, and next the data part, which is going to hold the users data. Fine, that's it. Now instead of using the table, it has lot many functions, so we can use the specific functions which we are going to use, like get table props, get table body props. We are going to use header groups. Next we are going to use rows, prepared rows, and if we need, we can keep on adding functions. Fine. Now we have defined like we are going to use this use table, and inside that this is the users variable which will hold the users data, and this is the set user function, this is the column, and this is the data which will hold the users, and this is our use table hook which will render columns and data as an users, and these are the functions which we are going to use. Now let us use these functions and render the column and data. We can use get table props for this one as a function. Now next thing, like here we can use our header groups dot map. For each header group we are going to render this tr, and for this tr we are going to use function like hd dot get header group props, and we can add one key which is like hd.id. Next, for each hd dot, we can say headers dot, we can map on these headers, and we can say for each column we are going to render these headers. We can cut it and add inside this one, and here is our, we can call the function on hd and get header props, sorry, get footer, it's not footer, it's a get header props. We can call this function, and again we can add one some key like hd, sorry, column.id. Fine. Next thing, like we are specifically going to render the actual header on column. For that we can call column.header render method, and inside this we can mention the header part. That's it. Okay, so here we need to use not on hd a column part, we need to use get header props, and this is the column id and this is the header which we are going to render. We can run our application using command npm run dev, and so that we can keep on checking the headers as well. Yes, we can see these headers are getting rendered up. Now here these are the headers part. Now this is the header, actually this header are nothing but these one, like this is the user id, name, role and technology. So what we mention inside this header, that will get shown on the screen. So this is about header, rendering the header part. Now similar way we need to render our body part, and for body part we need to use get table body props function, and here we can use like rows dot map, and we can call for each row we can for each row we are going to first prepare a row and pass this row. Next thing, like we are going to call return a row. Now this is the row part we can add inside this one. Fine. Now we are going to call the function like row dot get row props, and we need to add the key part like row dot id, let's say. So next thing, like we need to render our cells. For that we are going to call row dot cells dot map, and for each cell we are going to render our data part. We can copy it here. For data part again we are going to use the cell dot get cell props function, and again some key like let's say cell dot id, and here is we are going to render our cell. To render our cell we are going to call cell dot render, and here we are going to pass actual cell so that cell value will get rendered. So now we have done with our data render part as well. Now let us cross check it once. This is the get table body props. We are iterating on rows, and we are preparing a row, and we are returning a row, and which is like we are preparing a row using get row props. This is the row id, and for each cell we are going to enter the cell part. That's it. And cell part, like, which is nothing but the data which we are going to retrieve. Now it is not showing any data because we have not written any get API which will return the data. Now let us add that part. Now here we can use our axios.get method, and here we can mention the URL which is like http localhost and our port number which is 3000 in our case, and this user's endpoint, and here we can say done, and here is the response. Here is a callback, and we can simply log the data which is a response.data. In similar way we can set users which is like res.data. That's it. Now this is about the get API which will return all the users from the database, and next thing, like it will set the return data to the users object. This is our function which will set the data to the users. This is the variable. Fine. Now still it is not showing the data because we need to give a call to this one. Like you can use react.use effect, and here we can give get all users. We can call this function get all users. Here we can initialize it with some dependency array. Fine. Now we can see we have given a call to get all users, and it is showing the data as expected. Now let us check into the database how many records we have. So we have only one record. We have only one record. Now let us do one thing. Let us now add some CSS part for table. Like let's say we can first add table data. Here you can say it's a border 1 pixel solid. Next we can add border collapse as an collapse, and we can add some margin left similar to this one. Seems good. Now, and we can mention one width which is like, seems good. Now let us add one th part, and for th part again, like we can mention border radius as in 1 pixel solid, and we can mention font size as in 15 pixel. line height somewhere 18 pixel. We can save it. Seems good. Now this is for th. Now we can add some background color. Let us add background color. Let us make it bit light. Fine, seems good. Next thing, like we can add something like nth child e1. We need to add some different rows for e1 rows, so we can add some background color, and here we can use this background color. Now we need to add few more records so that we can check this. So we can take this is these 3-4 records we can add so that we can check it. Now this is our post method. We can add it. We can add 2 more records. Fine. Now we can cross check. Seems good. Now we need to add a similar way. We need to add border for t data. And here font size we can make it as an 1518. Fine. And background color for td we do not need to pass because we have given the background color to rows. Fine, seems good. Like here we can add some space in between these two, like input search and table. Where is our table part? Here, margin top we can mention as an somewhere 12 pixel. Seems good. Fine. So we are done with our table design and applying the color palette and CSS style to our table for headers and data. That's it. Now let us do one thing. Now we are going to add we are done with our get API as well. Now we are going to add some user into the database. For that, first what we need to do, so first we need to enter the input for this name, role and technology, and we need to capture that input into some variable. So we can define one variable. Let's say here is our, we can define one constant, and here we can say user data, and say set user data, and which will hold, so use state we can say, and here which will hold an object for here it's a name which is a blank, and the role which is again a blank, and next we have technology which is again a blank. Fine. So this object will hold all the input entries. Now next thing, like we need to use we need to capture whatever we enter into the name. So for that, for this input field we can say value, and here is for value we are going to use name dot user data dot name. Similar way we need to capture for role, and we need to capture for technology, and we can save it. Now whenever we enter something and change the input, so we need to handle that event as well. So we can say on change event we need to capture, and here we can say handle change, This function we need to mention. Now here we can mention that function as, we can mention constant handle change. Now here we are going to set user data, and here we are going to pass this user data, and here we are going to say e.target.name, and we are going to set target.value. That's it. Fine. So now whatever we enter it here, that will get captured into the name, similar for whole and technology. Now let us do one thing. We need to add our post mapping related logic, so you can copy it. So before here is our add button. So here once we on click on add button, we need to add our on click, and here we can say it's an, you can say it's an handle, you can use one handle add update user, it's an function. We can say handle update handle add update user. This is the function which we need to create, because this function we are going to use for adding the user as well as updating user. So we are using this, and here we can mention that, let's say constant, and here is our, we can add e dot and say event. We can call this function. Next, like here we can call our actual API on this, like let's say this, can copy this, and here we need to, here we are going to use a sync, and here we are going to use a wait and axios, and here this should be post method because we are going to post some data, and here we need to add our user data, which is an input object which need to be inserted into the database. That's it. Now set user data is not needed. Fine. Now this is the submit button. On click of this add user, now here what we can do, post this, like once we enter, it should, after this, like it should call get all users. Fine. Or else what we can do, we can add one constant, we can add one constant like clear all, and we can use set user data, and here we need to clear, once we submit we need to clear the data. We can add this, and here we can call this get all users method, because we are going to add this, call this method from different places, so we are keeping it on into the clear all, and we are calling this. So in this clear all, it will clear the input and give a call to the get method. So with this method we with this code we can add our new user to the database. Now that in order to fetch the new entry, we are going to give a call to get all users, and it will show the data with new user. Now let us check by adding one new user, like let's say here. So now you can observe one thing, like user ID is not getting displayed at here. So now fine, we can go to our app.jsx, and this is the user ID. We should use the user ID. Now fine, since there is a type, this is the small user ID, same we need to use, because if we check the get method, so it is returning the user ID which is a small. Fine. Now we can try for adding by adding one record. Now let's say you can add one name as a Donald, role as an, here something is like for role. Okay, so we need to add the onchange event for role as well, and for technology as well. Fine, we can save it. Now for role we can use, like let's say admin, and technology we can mention as in manager. Fine, we can see the record is added successfully. Now that means our post is working fine. We can see the last record is added successfully. Now next thing what we can do, like we can add the action buttons for edit, so that like it will allow us to edit and delete. So we can add action button to our table. So for that we need to go back to our columns part. Here we can copy this header as is. Here we can mention this is for edit, accessories again edit, and we can add one ID field as well, and we can say it's an edit, give comma, and after this, like we are going to add one, here is our cell, and here is our props, and props, for props we are going to render the button, and this is the edit button. We can add class name as a edit btn. So you can see the edit button is getting added. Similar way we can add one more header for delete button, and then next we can apply the css part. So this is the delete, and this is class name delete btn. Fine, seems good. Now we have edit and delete button, so now we can add some css part for this one. This is the edit btn. We can add border 1 pixel solid, border radius as an 5 pixel. Next we can add some font size, let's say 10 pixel. So line height we can add something like, let's say 12 pixel. Seems good. We need to mention some width, let's say 50 pixel, and we can add the background color. Seems good. Now similar way we can add for delete button, and for delete button we can take color something related to the red. as it's a delete button. Seems good. Now we can, okay, for table we can make it like text align center. Now it seems good, fine, which is as expected now. Now let us do one thing, like whenever we enter something at here, it should get added. So next thing, like on click of edit button, whatever the row the edit button is clicked on, so that entries should get populated in these text boxes. That logic we need to add. Now here we can add on click event, and here we are going to use like here we are going to use handle update. Here we are going to pass like, let's say, props dot cell dot, we can access a cell on a props, and on from cell we can access a row, and here we can say we can call the original. So whatever row, it will get passed to this. Fine. So this is about the update handle. Sorry, this is handle, should be handle update. Now we need to define one function, one constant for handle update, and this is our user object which are getting passed. Now we can say set user data, and here we can pass this user. Fine. Now let us check at least if it is getting populated. So we can see it is getting populated on click of edit button. Fine. Now next thing what we can do, we need to add the update logic. So first of all we can check if user data dot user id is there. In that case it should update API. If id is there, we should call the patch method, and for patch method we need to insert the id as well. So here we need to pass user data dot user id, and this is the actual modified user data which we are going to pass. Next thing, if it is not, if the user, okay, so this is done. This is about if the user id is there, then go for patch. Else part we can add our add logic, and here we are inserting a new user into the database in case the id is not existed. That's it. Now fine, we can save it. Now let us check by adding by trying to edit something. Now let us say we can take a Donald entry, and here instead of Donald we can say it's a David, and instead of admin it's a user, and instead of manager we can say the technology, let's say it's in Java, and we can add it. Seems good. The entry is getting updated as expected. fine. Now there is one more thing, like whenever we want to update, it should show the update button, not the add button. So we can add some logic for that as well. So this is our add button. So here we can mention if user data dot user id is there, in that case show user id is there, then in that case show update button, or else show add button. Seems good. Now it is showing add button. Let us check. Yes, we can see it is getting changed to the update button. Seems fine. Next thing, like what we can do it here. Now the updation is working fine. Now let us add the deletion part as well. So here we need to add one on click for delete as well. This is the delete button. Here we are going to use handle, call the handle delete method, and for handle delete we are going to use add some function like constant. It's an handle delete, and for handle delete again this is the user object which we get as an input for deletion, and here we can use copy some function it here. And before we delete something, like we need to confirm, like either if we want to delete it or not, like it's confirmed window.confirm and call, and here we can show are you sure you want to delete. Fine. Now here if it says confirmed, then go for deletion, and here instead of patch method we can call delete method, and for deletion we do not need to pass the whole object, only user id is enough. And after this like we need to for delete method actually the record is getting deleted, so we need to set the users because the list has changed, and here we can set response.data so that the new entry will get updated. And here we can use async for await, and after this like we can use window.location.reload so that we do not need to refresh the page to get the latest data on from the database. Now let us delete some entry. Let's say this is the Robert, and we are going to delete this. Now let us check on the browser. So this is the Robert. So let us add some the what means let us take this table to up so that it will look good. Now we can add some margin bottom 300 pixel. Seems good. Now let us check this Robin or Robert we want to delete, so we can click on delete button. So let us check what has happened it here. Seems there is a connection error, refused. Okay. So let us check if our backend application is running. Where clause. Okay. So let us check our where clause. User data, actually this is not, should not be the user data, this is the user, which is the input for our delete. Okay, we can save it now. So what happened, like we are not going to use the user data. What object we are, this is the row data which we are passing for the handle delete. Same user row we are capturing into the user, and we need to get the ID of this user, not the user data. We can save it now. We can cross check it once again. Oh, it seems like if the data is there or not, or the data is deleted. Yeah, fine. Let me restart it again. Fine. Now to serialize begin. Okay. So we can go to our, okay. So here we need to add the begin part for our get API as well. Fine, seems good. Now let us check. Fine. Now we want to delete some entry. Let's say this is the Robert we want to delete to. Okay, fine. The entry is deleted as expected. You can see if you want to delete this David entry, you can click on. Seems good. It is working fine. With this, like we are done with all our CRUD operations implementation part, and adding the integration logic from the UI or our UI front-end application. And these are all the integration logic, like not it here. These are all the integration logic we have kept it, like handle delete or get all users, and handle add and update user, through which we are going to connect to the database and going to give a call to our backend APIs. And with this we are done with all our CRUD operations. Now let us focus on our main functionalities like search filter, uh, sorting and pagination part. Now first we can implement the search filter. We can use global filter. Now next thing what we can do, we can add this hook into our use table, and here we need to mention it. Similar way we need to set filter. We can use set a global filter, and here we can define one constant like global filter, and can add the step part as well, and we need to add the state it here as well. Seems good. Now whenever we search something, that value we need to set. So this is our input search, and here we can say, first we can set the value part, and the value part is like, we can say it's an global filter, or it's a blank. If not, if there is no filter enter value entered, then it will consider it as a blank, and this is the global filter which we have mentioned it here. Okay, fine. Next thing, for this input we need to add some onchange event, so that whenever we change the text, it should handle that change event. So okay, so handle change function is already exist. We need to give some other name. Handle, we can say handle search, mention constant handle search, and here, okay, so we don't need to add constant. Rather here we can add e, and here we can say set global filter, and here we can pass e dot target dot value. That's it. So it will set whatever is there inside this search search input box. That value it will consider for searching for the table data. Let us check what will happen. Like, let us say if we want to search for one for Shivaji, yes, for manager seems good, for admin, yes. Now the filter is working fine as expected using this using this hook, like we have used this use global filter, which is fine. Now to check for sorting functionality, we need to, now we can implement the sorting functionality. Okay, fine. For in order to implement sorting and searching, we need sorting and pagination part. We can add few more records so that it will look good. Like let us take few more records from it here. Like let's say we can add some, fine. This is our post APIs. So we are going to implement the pagination part as well. So for pagination, we should have enough rows to show that. So what we can do, we can add few more records. Yes, we have added some records. Now let us check how many records it will show. Like now we have 18 records, seems good. Now let us do our sorting part. We can use, for sorting again, we can use some hook, like it's a use sort by, and same hook we need to use it here in our, after our used inside use table, we are going to use this use sort by, and here wherever we are entering our column data, so this is the column data we are entering here, we can call column dot get sort by toggle props. We can call this function so that our column will get sorted. Get sort by toggle props. Fine. Okay, fine. Now let us check. Yes, we can see it is getting sorted by ascending and descending order. This is for name, this is for role, this is for technology. Now let us add some the ascending and descending arrow it here so that it will look good. Now this is the header part. After this we can use, like let's say if it is a column dot sorted, we can show if it is column dot is sorted, sorry, here it should be is sorted, and here we can say if it is a sorted DSC, then here we can add one up arrow, and if that is not the case, then we are going to add some down arrow. So to add the arrows, we can use our Windows colon option and add this. If you want to use, you can add the icon from the you can import the icon and add the specific icon that you want. And this is here we need to mention some span. This is the span. Inside span we need to render this. So here this is the T head, and this is okay. So we need to complete it here. Seems good. Now if we click on user, we can see the arrow is appearing as expected. Fine. This is the descending, this is the ascending, this is the descending, and this is the ascending. Again, like this is ascending, this is the descending. Same for technology. It is working fine as expected, and arrow is showing as well. Now next thing, this is about sorting part we are done with. Now let us add the pagination part. So for pagination, again we are going to use hook, like use pagination, and we are going to use this hook it here. And for pagination, we are going to use for pagination, this hook is there. Now next thing what we can do, we need to add some buttons. Like let's say this is our table. After we the table ends, we need to add one div, and here we can, this is the page, we can say it is for pagination, or we can say it's a page div. Inside this we can add buttons like first class name, it is like say page div btn, it's a page div btn, and here we can mention it's a first button. Similar way we need to add three more buttons, like this is the previous, this is the next, and this is the last. Seems good. Now we can add, this is table. Now we can add some CSS part. Now it is not showing the data because here for pagination part, here if you go to the hooks part, here we are going to use, we are using the rows. For pagination we should use page, not the rows. Fine. And same we need to iterate on it here. Seems good. Fine. Now these are the buttons. We can add some CSS part for this one. This is the page div, and here we can add, and here we can add our margin left, same as above. And for page div buttons we can add some CSS. For CSS we can add So with this, like, we are done with all our CRUD operations and what all features and functionalities we have discussed before we start this video. I will request you to please like and subscribe the same, and do watch other videos which we have prepared for full stack related combination like Spring Boot and React and Node.js. So thank you so much for watching this. Please like and subscribe the same.